Hi, everyone. So, November is here and the holidays are fast approaching. And if you're like me, you've started thinking about your holiday cards. So, I'm here today to share a quick and easy holiday card design using Honeybee Stamps, Joy and Noel Wreath die, the Snowfall Stencil, and also the Holiday Traditions pattern paper. So, let's go ahead and jump right in with our backgrounds. So to start, I'm going to take a piece of craft cardstock and then attach it to the Snowfall stencil and then get some white pigment ink, and I'm going to start applying the white pigment ink over the stencil, trying to concentrate the color mostly around the edges of the card panel. So the idea that I had here was that I wanted there to be some light snowflakes, and I also wanted it to look a little bit like a vignette. So I'm going to peel off that stencil, and I just love how those snowflakes are looking. I love that the ink is uneven and that we have some darker spots, some lighter spots. It just makes it real interesting looking. And then we're going to soften up the edges by taking some more white pigment ink and applying it around the edges. Again, I'm working on that vignette look. And that looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to take some white gouache, which is a water-based paint, and I'm going to spritz it with a little bit of water, mix it up with my small paintbrush, and then I'm just going to splatter it onto this card panel. And this card panel is a little bit shorter than an A2 size card. I wanted there to be a little bit of a white border around the card panel, the focal panel at the end. So I'm just going to keep splattering and splattering until it just looks like a big blizzard on our background, and I like that, so I'm going to set it aside to dry. And then I thought it would be fun to maybe use a deeper, darker, more bold color. So I took a piece of dark red cardstock, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with a craft cardstock. I'm just going to apply that white pigment ink around the edges and also in the center, but trying to get a little bit of an uneven blend here just because we want it to look a little rustic and interesting. And so I'm just blotting it, rubbing it, doing all kinds of strokes with my brush just to get an uneven pattern. And I like that. And now we're going to do the same thing with rubbing the white ink along the edges of our card panel. And then once that's done, I'm just going to grab my acrylic block that has the white gouache on it and then do the same thing that we did with the first panel. Just splatter all over. Another nice thing that you could add here, if you have any sparkle or glitter, liquid glitter, that might be nice to splatter on here as well at this stage, just to give your card a sparkly look. So now that looks good to me. I'm going to set that aside to dry. And now I've cut out all of these pieces from the Joy Noel Wreath die ahead of time. And I am using pattern paper for our letters, but because it's thin, I'm going to apply each of the letters to a piece of cardstock as well, just because I want it to pop up a little bit from the page. And I wanted to make sure that that pattern paper didn't rip when I tried to apply it later. So for each of the letters, I'm just going to take my pattern paper, glue it to a piece of cardstock. That's just my Nina Solar White 110 pound weight cardstock, and then put it under an acrylic block just to make sure that the glue sets nicely. And now I'm going to put my focal panel on our card base. And you see how that gives like a nice little white border. And now I'm just arranging my letters so that they're in the center of the card. And when I do this, to make sure I get it right, I tend to leave the other letters on the page as I'm gluing the letters down just to make sure that everything is even. And I'll usually do the two outside letters first and the middle letter last, just because I find it helps me to get things even. And now we're going to put these two little wreath die cuts on top of the O. This is also included in the Joy Noel Wreath die. And one layer of the wreath is just from dark green cardstock that I had. And then this is a piece of the pattern paper from the Holiday Traditions pattern paper pack. And I just layered those two pieces together. Now we're going to put the bow together. And I really love this bow that comes in the Joy Noel Wreath die because it has 3 different parts to help the bow look dimensional, which I just love. So you have the base of the bow, and then you have the top of the bow that you can add on, which I also popped up on some foam tape just to give it even more dimension. And then you have the little center of the bow right here that you apply separately. And I just glued that on. And I was a little sloppy with my glue. So to fix it, I'm just going to put some glitter all over our bow. So we're going to have a glittery bow, which is really, really pretty. And then that also hides a little glue mistake that I made. And I'm just dotting that glitter pen all over the bow. And then I'm going to put some liquid glue on the back of the bow, just the piece of the bow that's going to touch the wreath. And then I'm going to apply that, trying to be a little more careful. I tend to have a heavy hand applying liquid glue, no matter how fine of an applicator tip I have. And then these are little holly berries that you can also cut out as part of the Joy Noel wreath die. And I'm just going to arrange them around the wreath. I didn't have a plan going into this, and I probably should have. You'll see, like, my clusters are a little bit uneven, but I think in the end, I put glossy accents on them, and glossy accents fixes everything, makes everything beautiful. I think the best way to apply these would either to use all the same size, spaced out, or to make like little clusters of 3. But I was just kind of randomly putting them on, just experimenting, seeing what it would look like. I was like, there's so many different circles of different pieces. I should try to play with them all, right? So I'm going to add 2 more little holly berries. And then I'm going to take my glossy accents and just make them kind of pop up. And now they're going to look lovely. So there is our first card, a little craft cardstock with our joy and our little glossy accent holly berries on the wreath. And now we can move on to arranging the second card. So for the second card, we're going to do the same that we did for the first. I'm just going to attach this panel onto an A2 size card base, and the stitched rectangle die that I used was just 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch shorter than an A2 size. So I guess it's like 4 by 5 1/4. And now I'm just going to attach my pattern paper letter to my cardstock letter just to make sure that it's nice and sturdy so it holds up on the card when we apply the letters in a second. And I've sped all this up since we've already seen it with a first card, but just in case you wanted to see how this second version came together, since there are different colors involved, and we're going to do something a little different with this wreath. I'm going to apply the bow the same way that I did for the first card, popping up that second layer on foam tape. I was careful to use less glue when putting the little center of the bow in, but I still got some glue on the outside. So I'm just going to hide my glue mistake with some more sparkle pen. And I actually think it looks really, really pretty with the sparkle pen as well. So maybe that's just how this bow is meant to be. It just wanted to sparkle. I think that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, so now we're going to arrange the joy onto our card panel. And I just love that plaid pattern paper from the Holiday Traditions pattern paper set. And we have all of that together. And now we're going to add our wreath. And again, I'm using the dark green cardstock, and then I'm going to use a piece of the pattern paper for the second layer of the wreath. And I'm just kind of staggering it so that we can see both greens. And then we're going to add our bow right on top. And for this one, we're not going to put any berries because we already have a lot of red on the card. And I think that looks good. So these are our 2 cards. They're really quick and easy. I think I was able to get each of them together in about 10 minutes each. If you're in mass production mode and you kind of do all of your backgrounds first and then cut all of your pieces, then arrange everything, I think you could probably go even faster than that. So thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Have a great day.